What's going on, everybody? Sept again, the AllSooners podcast, post-game edition. It's 1:10, which actually isn't as bad as I thought it would be. I told my wife, I said like 3, 4 a.m. is probably was my target. So 1:10 is ahead of the game, so I'm okay with that. Oklahoma beat Kent State tonight, 33-3. Weird game in a lot of ways. We're gonna break it down. John Hoover, Ryan Chapman, myself, Josh Callaway. Guys, how are we feeling? I think we've done later.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Bedlam was really late.
Yeah.
That's the one that sticks out of my brain.
I blame Lincoln Riley.
Also, the Alamo Bowl. Well, the Alamo Bowl we did on the car because that game was like 1 a.m. when it ended. That game was outrageous.
Well, we also had the weird balloon popping incident in San Antonio with the lovely Alamo Bowl staff.
I had
We're
no
just
idea
like,
what
what are we doing right now? They're just running golf carts through the field in the balloons.
That was a weird night. Caleb Williams, what a time. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
But the current team is 2-0. My prediction, Oklahoma will go undefeated. Lives for another week. Sooners get the job done. They won easily on the scoreboard.
Sort of.
But the first half, what a weird game. Let's just start right off the top. The obvious. Slow start. I mean, the first 2 quarters of this game, I don't think anybody ever really thought Oklahoma was going to lose, but there was a while where, on a weird day in college football, where A&M lost to Appalachian State and where Nebraska lost to Georgia Southern. What was it? Oh, Notre Dame lost to Marshall. Everyone was kind of looking at each other like, what's happening?
Is this going to happen?
Yeah.
That's what we thought.
Oklahoma turned on in the second half, but what a weird first half that was, where Oklahoma just defensively it was fine, but offensively couldn't do anything.
A quarter and a half, it was tied 0-0. 8.5 minutes, I guess they kicked their field goal, and they were leading 3-0 going in. Kent State was going into halftime until Dillon Gabriel goes 5 for 5 and lights up the field for the first time all night. There was a couple of 3-and-outs in there. There was some dropped passes, some missed blocks, some missed throws, running backs running into guys instead of running around them, going down on first contact. Nothing was going right for the offense. It was 0-0. All of a sudden it was 3-0. All of a sudden it was right before halftime. 18 seconds left to go in the first half. Marvin Mims to the rescue. And literally, he swoops out of nowhere like friggin' Dudley Do-Right. I mean, just sweeps. I mean, saves the day. Dillon Gabriel and Jeff Lebby put their heads together and said, how do we get the ball to him more often? And they did. And that's what ended up winning the game for Oklahoma. Marvin Mims, 7 catches, 162 yards, 163 yards, whatever that number was.
63.
A couple of touchdowns, couple of career highs for him. The defense played very well. There were times where you were wondering, what's the defense doing? But then you look up and, like Reggie Grimes said, at the end of the day, we only give up 3 points. And Justin Harrington said, 3 points for a football game is not a bad day at the office.
No, you're going to win a lot of games if you give up 3 points.
Yeah, it was for a while there in the first half. I think so the offense was awful in the first half, just dreadful. On top of everything you mentioned that was going wrong, Dillon Gabriel was also on a couple of those early sacks. Dillon Gabriel held the ball for too long, so I don't know if that was Dillon Gabriel missing wide receivers. I won't know that until we can kind of watch the game back. But in the moment, it just felt like Dillon Gabriel held the ball too long, and then a little delayed blitz action was hitting home. And then, like you mentioned, Oklahoma needed that hurry-up moment where it was 3 straight balls to Marvin Mims, which Brent Venables described after the game as basically Marvin Mims was on the near side. When you're trying to clock it that quickly, you're going to be looking to the guy on the near side. It was 2 little out routes to the sideline, and on that last one, he kind of got bumped at the line, just ran straight through, and Dillon Gabriel put just a ball that was absolute money, letting go, leaving everyone going, where was that for a whole half of football? So that's really concerning. I thought the offensive line was really bad in the first half. I don't understand. So Anton Harrison and Tyler Guyton flip sides, right? So I asked Jeff Lebby on Monday, you put Anton Harrison at right tackle against UTEP, let Tyler Guyton right at left. What was the reasoning behind that? And he said, okay, so Anton Harrison's had the starts. He's the one that's been experienced, so we decided to move him over to right tackle because Tyler Guyton's worked mostly at left tackle. Tonight, he was asked, why did you flip those guys? And he said, well, Anton Harrison started all of his career games at left tackle, and Tyler Guyton worked a little at right tackle during camp. So literally exact opposite of what we were told on Monday.
What does that tell you? They're searching for answers.
Correct. Correct. What that tells you is Wanya Morris is going to start at right tackle against Nebraska.
Yeah, probably so.
Big time. Yeah, Brent Venables said that he expects him to be back.
Yeah.
And, he's going to be in there.
The thing about the 2-minute drill at the end of the half, think about it. Teams practice the 2-minute drill, and it's do this, do this, do this, do this. Don't think about anything. Just do these processes. Finish these processes, and we'll be at the other end of the field before you know it. I think when they try to go tempo early on when it's not a 2-minute drill at the end of the half, when they try to go tempo, I think they're out thinking themselves, and they're out looking for need to know what the protection scheme is and who's coming and who's the mic and which corner's has got the wide side. Stop thinking too much, and that's what you see what happens. I mean, it's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, touchdown, we're done.
Yeah.
It was that simple. It's a 2-minute drill that you practice 1,000,000 times in the preseason, and at the end of every probably Wednesday practice, I think you probably drill that a bunch of times. When you don't have to think, you can react, and I think you saw the result.
Does the run game tonight concern you guys? I mean, obviously the stats end up being okay. You had a long run from Eric Gray that was 44-yarder that makes him look a lot better. Even with that 44-yarder, still under 4 yards per carry total.
Same as last week. The 46-yarder skews the average.
And in the first half, it was running into a wall of nothing. And they didn't get away from it. They stayed with it. They were committed to trying to run the ball, and it just wasn't happening in that first half at all. What it was 7 yards, right? 7 yards.
7 yards rushing in the first half, which again,
that should never happen.
We mentioned this in the post-game wrap, but by comparison, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, Justin Broyles. All three of those guys, Stutzman, I believe, had 9 tackles at halftime. Bowman and Broyles had 7 tackles at halftime. Oklahoma had 7 yards rushing at halftime.
Yeah.
I was pretty underwhelmed by the offensive line play last week. It did not get any better this week. And Eric Gray didn't look like a feature back in the first half. I don't really think Eric Gray looked like a feature back in the second half, frankly. Marcus Major looked really good. I tried to ask Jeff Levy about Marcus Major, what kind of loosened up, and he pivoted to Eric Gray, which was interesting. He basically said that there was a play in the first half that Eric Gray had the same scenario, ran to a tackle, got 4 yards. Then that play in the second half that he busted off, got the same look, made a cut, and it was a 44-yard play, basically. So he was praising the stick-to-itiveness and the ability to make those adjustments, which is fine.
Yeah.
Marcus Major's looking at the best running back on the team by far through 2 games, and he's gotten half the carries of Major, Gray, which I think is a problem that needs to be addressed going to Lincoln, especially if the O-line's going to play like this.
This defense, remember, the Kent State defense last year, I know last year, 2 different years, right? But last year, this defense ranked 116th in the country in run defense. 116th, and also 116th in pass defense. And they were getting after Dylan Gabriel. They were making him throw the ball into places he didn't want to throw. You got to take your hat off to Kent State for playing as hard as they did on defense in the first half. That was impressive. But 124th in scoring, 124th in total defense. There's a lot that this Oklahoma offense has got to shapen up before they go to Nebraska next week.
Yeah, Marcus Major got 4 less carries than Javonte Barnes in this game, which obviously some of that was toward the end of the game, but still, Javonte Barnes 9 carries, Marcus Major just the 5. And, it sure seems like as Baylor goes down to BYU.
Chapin's looked awful. Like, we've only watched fourth quarter and overtime here as we work, but Chapin's looked terrible.
Not as bad as their kickers, though.
Correct.
A lot of missed field goals.
Both kickers very bad.
Future Big 12 rivals. Baylor got him last year. BYU gets him back.
Beats Baylor 26-20. Real time. Certified fresh.
Yeah, certified fresh. Anybody watching this already knows that. They're saying, shut up. That's been done. But Marcus Major, I agree. And he's looked the best of the bunch in the first couple of games. And we've only really seen him, Gray, and Barnes, obviously. They haven't really used Tyler Walker a little bit tonight. That's been it. Haven't seen Sawchuk yet or anything like that. So, I don't know. I don't really know what to say about the run game right now because, to Hoop's point, this Kent State defense, it's early in this season, but kind of stink. And didn't have it tonight.
Here's another red flag for me, too. So Brent Venables talked about it specifically after the game. He said that's Kent State's defensive front is a front they hadn't seen before, and they had to get in to make some adjustments. Okay? That's fine. You can't take 30 minutes to make that kind of adjustment.
Yeah.
If that is Nebraska doesn't have a front that's worth anything really defensively, but if that's Nebraska's front, if sure as heck not Kansas State in 2 weeks, like you cannot take 30 minutes to find life. The defense played awesome tonight, and we're going to get into that, but you can't do that. I asked Andrew Rame after the game, why did it take 30 minutes? Like, why did that get all the way into halftime? And he was like, well, there was some different rush angles that they were throwing at you. So I was like, okay, again, that's not that's a 2 or 3 drive thing. That's not an entire first half thing. That to me is a big red flag if that's how slow the adjustments are going to
They
come
need
for
to
the
be
offense.
able to correct on the fly, not say, well, we'll fix that at halftime. Whatever they're doing to us, so we'll fix it at halftime. That's not acceptable at all.
Yeah, the halftime adjustments were good.
They were good. They were great.
Because they came out in the second half and looked like a different team offensively, and obviously a huge part of that was Marvin Mims. What a night! This was kind of the game tonight that I think most people thought Marvin Mims would have in the first game. And just come out.
He needs to have this kind of game every game.
7 catches, 7 targets.
Yeah.
He caught every time. 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, a couple of bombs down the field. He feels, and it's been UTEP and Kansas State, but we saw it this freshman year. We saw it at times last year when they threw him the ball. He feels like over the top. He can. Obviously, he can't. It's football, but it feels like he can get it almost anytime he wants it. Like, if he has one-on-one, it's almost like scrap whatever play call you have.
Mm-hmm.
Mims is out there one-on-one and let it fly because he was absolutely feasting in this game.
You see that bug fly on my nose?
It's a bug week. If you watch the midweek wrap, it's been a big week for bugs.
Well, here's the problem. It's pouring rain out here, which is why this podcast is going to go long because Hoover and I don't have jackets or umbrellas, and the rain's picked up.
I got
so
a wagon.
The bugs are now in here.
I got a wagon.
Is it covered?
No.
You have a schooner
No.
heading somewhere?
The
No.
rain, man.
It's going to be full of water when we get back in the car.
Maybe to finally wash off the K-State mud.
Oh. No, I tried, and it's not coming off.
There forever.
The K-State hill mud. Stay away from Bramlage, people.
But yeah, I mean Marvin Mims. I feel like this was the game that. So we've talked about this, right, in the offseason. If you went in and dove deep and watched a ton of Ole Miss stuff, there were times last year where Jeff Lebby's offense at Ole Miss, the thing that was encouraging, it was like if something happened and the defense didn't look like they could stop it, Lebby was just going to run that play over and over and over again until the defense stopped it.
Yeah.
Didn't really see that against UTEP because he didn't really need it, but the last 3 plays of the first half, boom, 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 those 3 catches down to Marvin Mims like we talked about. The first 2 plays of the second half, I think it was a 7-yard catch for Mims, and then the other deep shot to start the second half that resulted in the pass interference. And then finally they opted for Stoops, and that broke the trend of 5 straight plays for Marvin Mims. And from that moment on, the offense looked like the offense we saw against UTEP. The only time it was stopped after that's when Davis Bevel was brought in. They intentionally threw the e-brake on, basically.
Yeah.
Here's how you know things are bad. Michael Turk had a 24-yard punt.
Not good.
I mean, Oklahoma was literally their best player, and he shanked one. He's not perfect. He's human.
Yeah.
But that's when you know it's not your night. And that was in the first half. Second half, I don't even know if he punted in the second half, did he? I think he did. But, yeah, he did a couple
Had to. He had
times.
6 punts,
yeah,
so
he did.
I don't think it was all in the first half.
But that just shows you, I mean, things were struggling. Everybody was struggling in the first half. And you wonder, honestly, the skeptics, the fans, the cynics, whoever you want to say, you wonder if they were prepping, doing a lot of looking ahead at Nebraska and Kansas State for that matter.
Right.
But here's the thing. What have we heard from Brent Venables all off season long? A couple of things, right? But accountability, that stuff. Player-led, that stuff. The new theme we've kind of heard as we've gotten into game week is every game week is focused on Oklahoma, right? So the UTEP game week, it's still about preparing for Oklahoma. The Kent State game week, it's all about if Oklahoma plays their best game, there's not a bunch of teams that are going to beat them. I'm sure we'll hear the same thing. Yeah, we're going to Nebraska. It's a good opponent, but it's still about Oklahoma. You can't play a first half like that. If you're going to be the accountability program offensively, you can't play a first half like that if you're focused on Oklahoma. Like, that just doesn't fly. I'm sorry. So the defense, great. I thought that they kind of threw a little bend but don't break in the first half. Had, obviously, the missed field goal that helped him out. Kept him out of the end zone. It's the fewest points against an FBS team allowed since Kansas in 2017. So that's big time, obviously, right, for the defense. In the second half, I think they kind of turned it on to another level. In the first half, they had a couple of struggling to get off the field on third down. I think that you saw those adjustments were made a lot quicker, right? So that's obviously the good to come out of this. Danny Stutzman was awesome. Billy Bowman was awesome. But I don't want to hear the looking ahead to Nebraska if all we heard all offseason long was be accountable, be player-led, you got to pour in every day, all that stuff. You can't look ahead if that's going to be the other theme coming out of it, especially when it's your second game as a head coach.
Brent Venables spent about 4 minutes in the postgame, though, Ryan, talking about how Bill Snyder used to practice every day. Every day at practice they would prepare for Nebraska. So you got to wonder if it's in his DNA. He's out here going, hey, guys, I know we play Kent State this week, but here's our Nebraska plan in a couple of weeks.
That's what's up next. And, yeah, we'll have a lot of time to talk about that.
I bet Bill Snyder didn't appreciate
that team.
Bill Snyder didn't appreciate him revealing that he was practicing for Nebraska every day.
Statute of limitations. It's old.
Well,
move on with it.
Here's the other thing with that, though. If Brent Venables walks in and says, hey, we prepare every day to beat Alabama, okay, you're preparing every day to beat one of the best programs in the country. Preparing every day to beat this Nebraska team,
yeah,
you can't look ahead to – maybe that's what I left out. You can't look ahead to this Nebraska team that just gave up a Memorial Stadium record to Georgia Southern as far as total yards go.
What a train wreck that team is.
So, obviously, the obvious – the bad is obvious tonight. Slow start, rough offense. And, if you remove the fourth quarters from each game because they were in hand, they played 6 quarters of meaningful football, if you want to call it that. And the offense looked pretty good for pretty much that entire UTEP, but didn't have it for the first 2 quarters tonight. So you're looking at, 4 pretty good quarters and 2 not so good. So we'll see what they put out there next week against Nebraska. Obviously, let's look at the defense. Like Ryan said, defense was great. I don't really know what – you don't have much to complain about. I mean, you give up 3 points, you give up 3 points. And they got a missed field goal in there, but forced a couple turnovers. Kent State never got in the end zone. Like Ryan said, Danny Stutzman was everywhere tonight. It seems like he is, and we already knew this, but he's a star. He's a stud. He had a great freshman season. Brent Venables loves him. He lights up when he talks about him. And
so does Roof.
And he was a maniac in this game. And yeah, forced a couple turnovers, and you liked the guys who did it, with Bowman stripping that ball and recovering it, and then Harrington getting the interception. But for the most part, you give up 3 points. I thought everybody pretty much. Jeffrey Johnson was in there. Jalen Redmond, Reggie Grimes continues to be a train wreck
Johnson
in a good way.
And Isaiah Coe got a bunch of playing time together early, side by side. They went with the beef in between, and that was good. But you're right, Stutzman, 12 tackles, 9 solos, 4 tackles for loss, had a quarterback sack. Jeez. I'm going to make my prediction, Big 12 Player of the Week.
I think that
the story.
That's right.
We've buried the lead here. Danny Stutzman, incredible, right? 4 tackles for loss, all that stuff, a sack, 12 tackles. Then he walks into the Red Room after the game in his General Booty merch. He's got a Booty T-shirt on. He literally is like sitting down in a chair, just as relaxed as can be. He's got 4 or 5 reporters around him with the phones, all that stuff, and he's just sitting back, just like, yes, I am a true sophomore playing my second game of my sophomore season.
I don't know if you guys could hear it up here, but there was a little bit of a "We Want Booty" chant at the end of the game.
We heard it.
You could hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So
who doesn't?
The day
really, come on, who doesn't want Booty?
The day he gets in, it's going to be an eruption in that stadium if that ever happens. It's going to be tough.
They're not booing; they're chanting "Booty."
It's going to be spectacular. But that putting a bow on Stutzman, I think too. The other thing is, it wasn't like Danny Stutzman was also just like compiling, like racking up a bunch of like assists by being the second guy or anything like that. Like 9 solo tackles.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of those tackles for loss was that 4th and 1 where Kent State had just slipped into the red zone. I think they were on the 18-yard line. And so he was coming up in big moments, which is a big response from a guy that had a really good game last week. But if you want to flip it, he also was very close to maybe a pick 6, but definitely a really impactful pick. Brent Venables, I don't know if singled him out's the right word, but he had used him as an example as like they wanted to adjust some of the mental errors, and he's like that holding on that 4th down that extended a drive. That was Danny Stutzman. Basically, he said you don't need to be holding against UTEP was essentially the vibe of that. So to come out and play I'm sure once we watch it back, there might be something you can nitpick, but I felt like he didn't put a foot wrong tonight. And I think that's a big-time response from a guy that had a really good game in week 1 and then took it to another level in week 2, which is just really exciting for when you look at the guys that are leading the charge tonight, Stutzman, Bowman, true sophomores.
5, you want something else to pick on, 5 quarterback sacks in 2 games for the opposing defenses that Oklahoma's faced. And guess those opposing defenses were UTEP and Kent State.
You're going to face better ones.
You're going to face a lot better defenses starting next week, and especially the week after that when they play Kansas State. That can't continue. I seem to remember, and you guys correct me, hit me on Twitter at Johnny Hoover if I'm wrong. Please hit me on Twitter or the comment section down below, whatever. I seem to remember 2008, Sam Bradford was sacked 8 times. Does that sound right? In the entire season going to Miami for the national championship game. So there's some such a thing as a championship offensive line, and then there's such a thing as an offensive line that is an absolute work in progress.
100%, and that's got to be, if you want to pinpoint one biggest concern, probably is it right now for Oklahoma through a couple games. To finish the conversation on the defense, it's 2 games. It's UTEP and it's Kent State, so we want to preface that. They've looked really good. They've tackled pretty good. It was a little sloppy tonight. Coaches didn't really love the tackling. In the first half, Ted Roof and them and Venables were both pretty critical of that. But still, at the end of the day, you have 3 points. Had a lot of tackles for loss and stuff again. Are you guys willing to say that this is a good defense at this point? Is it still an unfinished product? Like, would you? I mean, where are you at in the state of this defense? If they went against a legit offense, a high-powered one, would it be rough, or do you think they could hold their own? Because through 2 games. They look pretty. They're swarming to the ball. They force some turnovers.
Somewhere
physical.
Between what you just said, I think they're a good defense, and I think they're a work in progress. I think that both those things can be true.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree to that. Because you think about it. Okay, if they tackle like they did in the first half tonight against K-State, for instance, with Deuce Vaughn and Martinez coming in, K-State probably puts 14, 17 points on the board in the first half. But if they play like they did in the second half, and you've got Billy Bowman rallying to the football, you've got Justin Harrington coming up with the interception, and again, save a couple of third downs, and a lot of that tackling happened on third downs. In the first half, I think the defense played pretty well. So I think kind of what Hoove said, working toward being a pretty good defense, but it's just so hard. I know that Kent State, this team came in here, put up a good fight. I still don't think it's a good football team. They got run by Washington last week. A Washington team that was focused.
They did put some points on the board.
It was 31-13 at halftime last week in Seattle.
Yeah.
They gave up 31 points in the first half. They gave up 7 tonight. At the end of the first half.
Yeah, Kent State defense. Yeah, you're not gonna. You're not gonna win that argument for sure. We'll see how it goes moving forward. As far as injuries tonight, Key Lawrence didn't play. Tweaked his hamstring. Brent Venables said during the week. Didn't really say. He said, I hope we get him back, but he didn't really know, it sounds like. And then Marcus Stripling left this game pretty early. I don't know, did he ever come back in?
I think he played the second half, didn't he?
I didn't notice him in the second half. I know that on the broadcast they had just pointed out that he was on the bike trying to work it out, basically.
Okay. He went to the locker room. It was relatively early in the game, so that's something to keep an eye on, too. But, Key Lawrence is out, or missed tonight's game. Brent Venables didn't sound great about him coming back immediately. He said hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. If Key Lawrence is out, how significant is that? He's a starter on this defense, somebody who we talked about in the preseason as being really important. If he misses time, how big a deal is that?
I thought it was good tonight for Oklahoma's defense that they were missing arguably their best safety, one of their best defensive players, and didn't really miss that much of a beat. And made those adjustments. Last week they played 2 safeties. They played 2 high safeties for the most part every snap, for the most part. This week they were rotating. They were going high-low, back and forth. They brought in 6 DBs at one point. Most of the time they play with 5 DBs. As Ted Roof said tonight, they threw in some wrinkles. They made some adjustments, and they threw in some defensive tweaks to last week's game plan. I said, is that endemic of Kent State and the game plan that you have to have for Kent State, or is that just the natural evolution of this defense? And he said, yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah, he said this is just the way the defense is evolving. And he said, yes, there is some game planning that goes into it week to week, but for the most part, the stuff that we saw tonight has been in for a while, and they just decided to roll it out tonight.
Yeah, I thought Justin Broyles played really well tonight. I was thinking back, trying to figure out, is there a better Justin Broyles game the last couple of years of his career? Because even when he's come in toward the back end of last season, he came in and kind of took over that nickel corner spot for the nickelback for Billy Bowman after Billy Bowman had been moved around. He played okay, but I thought tonight, like, you didn't notice Justin Broyles at all.
Yeah.
And usually, I don't want to be harsh, but usually when OU fans are harping on Justin Broyles, it's because they're noticing him for plays that they don't think are great. And I don't think you had any of those moments, really, tonight. At least none of them stick out to me. So I thought that was really encouraging from a guy that we know always steps up into that leadership role. But Key Lawrence didn't have a ton to do last week. I think that was due to the fact that, like you mentioned, Hoover, they were playing too high, and Billy Bowman was kind of the guy that was usually up in the box a lot more than Key Lawrence. So I think he only had 3 tackles last week. But we saw all last year. You get Key Lawrence around the football, and good things happen. They just do. And so, yeah, I think that you absolutely have to have Key Lawrence back by K-State, for sure. Otherwise, that could become kind of a question mark. But, again, I thought Justin Broyles played really well tonight. And that is more safety depth than we've ever saw under Alex Grinch, because it was DTY and Pat Fields, and that was it.
What do you guys think of the lights? The lights in the atmosphere in this game.
Seemed to fire the fans up. The players loved it. The players got questions.
It seemed to be
about
divisive.
You think so?
From
I hated it from a photography standpoint.
The fans in the stadium, in my opinion, ate it up. It was the best atmosphere for an OU game like this one.
It was
a blowout against Kent State. I mean, the fourth quarter, it was basically still packed in here, and it was electric, actually. The crowd was really into it.
Yep.
Students were here, by the way. I mean, people, we talked about it last week on the postgame show.
It cooled off.
People really dumped on the students for leaving early. We talked about, yes, they leave early a lot. That probably wasn't the best time to talk about it because it was so hot. People were having heat strokes and stuff like that. Tonight, it was borderline cold in the second half.
It got nippy.
And it was full. I mean, it was full and it was electric. The light things. Although they were kind of cool. I mean,
new LED lights, if you're wondering, if you haven't heard.
If you saw the game on TV.
Oklahoma replaced all their light standards in the corners, right, with brand new LED lights.
Yeah,
so
I guess.
They look great. They're casting amazing light. The light for the videos, the highlight videos that Josh is going to post, primo.
Definitely brighter.
But when they score a touchdown, they cut the lights like we're at some dance hall, and it's like I'm standing there with a camera, and I'm like, wait a minute, where did everybody go? You can't see anything with the camera. That's my, I guess, criticism is that photographers are like, I want to get touchdown celebrations, and you guys kill the lights for the touchdown celebrations?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it was shown on the broadcast. I mean, we also were at the game. I honestly don't know, but I mean, in between quarters, it was basically a rave out there.
Bro,
I mean, the lights went down.
I was about to say,
lights.
Clear out. We're talking raves. This is Ryan's time. I've never been more disappointed to not just happen to be field level than it was before one of the kickoffs in the third quarter where they cut the lights. Everyone in the stadium has their iPhone camera out with like the flashlight. Wild. People were getting down, and I was up here in the press box just like, get me out of here.
I didn't know where I was. I stepped into a different world for a while.
They've done that for a couple of years now, though, haven't they? With the third quarter break and the cell phone lights out, everybody's got their cell phone
not with the lights off.
Not with the lights off, though.
Yeah, because you couldn't turn the old lights off.
Yeah, with the LED lights, they can go off and on just like that. So by being it, you can cut them. And look, I'll tell you, the kick coverage team was eating it up. Like that was like the players in the post
juice,
like
man.
The players in the post game. Andrew Ram was like, "That's something I've seen at Alabama for the last 2 or 3 years, and I want it."
Georgia does it. Right?
Yeah. And look, here's the reality too for the olds out there. They had a lot of recruits here. I bet they all thought it was awesome.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say they all probably thought that was really, really cool. Brent Venables had a funny. What did he say? He was like, "That was kind of different." He's an old school guy, so you know that, but he also probably gets it. You know that you gotta. So I thought it was cool. You know, the OU game day experience for fans has been under question.
Yes.
You know, for a while, especially with like fans leaving early and stuff like that. People wondering, did they do a good enough job? are they SEC ready? I think that tonight was a good step. And look, it means nothing when you have a day game.
Yeah.
They did last
Right.
week. We saw none of this.
We didn't see it at all.
Yeah, so you're
And here's
at
the
the
deal.
mercy of your kick time. But
Here's
I
my
thought this was
suggestion.
pretty cool.
Here's my suggestion. If you have epilepsy,
Maybe
whatever
avoid.
that situation is, if you see a guy going in for the touchdown, I don't know, do you close your eyes? Cover your eye? I don't know. And that's being serious. If flashing lights are a problem for you, if they make you dizzy, make you seize or pass out or whatever, it's 2022. The lights are going to flash when Oklahoma scores a touchdown.
Well, on that note, there was a weird Twitter fight that was happening, but also for years the video board is massive, and the video board has flashing animations anyway. So even when the lights are on, they're still flashing and stuff. So yes, I'm sure that there is some sort of compliance, all that stuff, but I don't really think that's kind of what you're worried about going to a college football game. But you mentioned the atmosphere. This is where it does play in, right? If you read AllSooners.com, you were there, you read our recruiting story that dropped Friday at 6 p.m. If you didn't read it, you're missing out. Go to AllSooners.com. Big recruiting weekend. You've got Jordan Renaud in. Who's Jordan Renaud picking between? Oklahoma and Alabama. What did he watch, likely, or hear about, or see all the highlights cut on Twitter? An Alabama team scraping by to survive in Austin when Hudson Card, the backup quarterback's playing, right?
Right.
You've got Peyton Bowen in. Peyton Bowen is a Notre Dame commit, and Eli Bowen. But Peyton Bowen right now, the 2023, Eli Bowen's 2024, not committed. Peyton Bowen is committed to Notre Dame, who got embarrassed by Marshall today. Who are some of the other people that are still pursuing him heavily? Texas A&M,
Exactly.
who got embarrassed by Appy State. So to come here on a night game against Kent State where things didn't go well in the first half,
Right.
put on a show in the third quarter, and for this stadium to still be full and juiced, and if the lights added to that, that matters in a big way to recruits that you have in. Does that mean that Bowen's going to flip to Oklahoma because of the lights?
No.
No.
Yeah, right.
But
Put it all
all
together.
of those little things, you put it all together, and it's the whole package, and stuff like that will end up mattering in the long run. The whole the scope of it.
Josh mentioned the crowd being juiced all the way through the middle of the fourth quarter before they finally wound down and started emptying out. That matters too.
Yeah.
Those players look up in the stands if they're still here in the fourth quarter and see people standing there, doing the scoreboard, fist pumping with the cheerleaders or whatever it is, singing along with the flashlights, whatever that is. Absolutely, it matters. Those kids love that stuff.
Yeah,
Fan engagement is everything. It's not everything. It's huge.
I had the thought, I was like, man, if this is obviously it had to have happened, and probably a lot of cases of it. But if this was your first OU game, you'd never been to a game, it's your first game ever as a fan, you have no idea. Like, you stepped into light show, and they didn't score for almost 2 full quarters, and like, what a crazy first game. Because I remember whenever I was switching ends of the field between the third and fourth quarter, between the entire third and fourth quarter, the lights were off that whole time, and they were like flashing them and stuff like that. And I just was thinking, like, I'm not at an OU game right now. This is something completely different. It felt like this is a new era of OU football completely. They have really overhauled everything. And so what a wild game this was on that regard. But different feel, different vibe, different feel tonight for sure. So I guess as we start to kind of wind down on this, I guess concern level, I don't know best way to word it about the slow start. I mean, are you glass half full of, wow, look at how they responded. They played like their C game for a lot of this, D game, and they still won by 30. Or are you more like that first half was so concerning that they might be taking some losses this year? I mean, which way do you lean on?
But yeah, again, I think a little bit of both. I think the first half was very concerning. I think the adjustments they made at halftime and at the end of the first half were impressive for young coaching staff and a fairly inexperienced team. Brent Venables has said it 100 times. 40% of this roster has never worn an OU uniform before. Daniel Parker, welcome to the game. 2 catches in
Couple of catches.
First quarter, I think he had 2 catches. So that's just an example of guys coming in, not his first game. He missed last week.
Right.
Guys coming in not knowing exactly what to expect from the coaches, the coaching staff, the game plan, the opponent, the crowd, the atmosphere, being at an Oklahoma game. And, guys overcame that. Brent Venable said we faced a little good adversity tonight.
Nice catch by J.J. Hester tonight, too.
A little good adversity. What does that mean? It means they kind of needed to get socked in the jaw a little bit. And especially when you consider, okay, they only gave up 3 points, but that 3 points came at the end of a 15-play, 72, 4.5-minute drive. Like, get off the damn field for, finally. And they couldn't do it until they forced a field goal. But that's how close they were to a shutout. If they get just one stop at some point during that 15-play drive, this thing's a shutout. And everybody's probably a little happier.
Yeah, about a 6 level of concern. Wasn't stoked with the run game coming out of game 1. Guys,
Sure.
not trying to bring up ghosts, but Dylan Gabriel through 2 games has shown us that he is nowhere close talent level to the guy that finished the year starting at quarterback for Oklahoma last year. If the defense doesn't, again, and we're projecting toward playing actual teams, like good teams in the Big 12, teams that got good pass rushes. I haven't seen anything that shows me that Dylan Gabriel is going to be able to put this team on his arm if the defense has an off night. And so I think that's pretty concerning that the run game has just looked so lethargic outside of 1 or 2 big pops. Now, if you get those 1 or 2 big pops every game, then it's no issue, right? But with the way that Jeff Led wants to run this offense, I think you want to be consistently in that 4 or 5 where I'd rather see them get 4 or 5 yards per carry where their biggest run is 20 yards than having to have a 40-yard run to get you there. Don't think it'll be a problem next week, although I think we should just chalk that up to a 1-score game because Nebraska just loses 1-score games left, right, and center. That's not anything to do with Oklahoma. That's just some weird Nebraska voodoo they've got going on. But, like, K-State, you're telling me that defensive front comes in and it's Dylan Gabriel. Like, they're not going to be – if they play like they played tonight, they're not going to be able to run the ball in K-State. And I'm not sure that if the defense doesn't lock down and play like tonight, that Dylan Gabriel's going to be money to do that against K-State, Baylor, Oklahoma State when you talk about just all the good fronts they're going to see. If Texas's front plays like they played today against Alabama, like, there's a couple of losses in there, probably. That's if you get first half OU run game like you got tonight. But there's still plenty of time. You're bringing in a new offensive lineman into the fold in Wanye Morris. So I'm very open to taking a step back and saying, what does this unit look like when you've got your best 5 on the field?
Right, absolutely. So
That
that's going
Texas
to change
team,
things up.
If Texas plays like they did today and Oklahoma plays like they did today on October 9th,
8th,
8th,
yeah.
Texas probably going to win that game.
We're doing it.
I'm just saying.
It's so hard.
Texas was darn impressive today.
We're doing the early season college football thing where it's so hard. The Notre Dame Ohio State last week, it was Ohio State, what a nice win, pulling that out. And Notre Dame loses to Marshall at home today, and everybody's like, Ohio State may stink. I mean, the change is week to week.
All we know is the Fun Belt is back.
Yeah.
The Fun Belt
Big
is
night
back
for the
in a
Fun
big
Belt.
way.
Big night for the Fun Belt. Somebody made. I saw Josh Pate, who does a great job. He joked like, "Who pissed off the Sun Belt?" Because they were just taking no prisoners tonight. But yeah, I mean, who knows? It remains to be seen on that Alabama-Texas game if that was an indictment on Alabama having a really bad game, or maybe they're not as good as we're used to Alabama being, or if Texas actually is pretty good. We'll find out. And also, I would remind people too, 2019, LSU, who just killed everybody all year. The only game they even came really close to losing was Texas.
Yep.
That Texas team wasn't any good either. So, I don't know. We'll let it play out. Quinn Ewers might be hurt. I don't know. So we'll let that play out. But yeah, you're correct though. As far as what we saw today, Texas is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a fun game for sure. Always is. But here in a few weeks. All right, play of the game. Wrap up. We did that last week. We'll try and continue to do that.
Could it be a guy by the name of Marvin Mims, maybe?
Not bad.
Is that fair?
That's not
Is that a
bad.
fair one?
I mean, I'm really hung up on the 7 targets. All set, like, he's got to be in the locker room like, you see what happens when you throw me the ball? All 7.
He needs 12 a game.
30.
I don't think that's
What's
asking
the
too
matter?
many.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's really only 2 candidates for this. Offense, Marvin. Defense, Stutzman. And I think that the defense was awesome, but Marvin Mims had to be the spark for this offense, and finally they got going. And then all of a sudden, 24-point third quarter, and boom. It goes from what is wrong with the Oklahoma offense to, you might cover with ease still by the end of the third quarter. So they obviously got it into gear and got it rolling. But again, we're trying to project toward actual football teams, and you can't just lay down on one half of the football for a whole 30 minutes and then be like, all right, let's show up and play one half of offense.
Oklahoma's a good team. Good teams win. Great teams cover.
Yeah.
They have not covered. Did they cover the first?
They covered last week.
Okay, so I got the hook against UTEP.
Yeah.
Got me.
It was
made
31
my pick earlier, and it was 31.5 when I made my pick, and
they won by 32.
They won by 32. So it was 32.5 when I made my pick. That's what
I see.
The hook got me. It was 32.5.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Marvin Mims. I mean, Marvin Mims saved the offense in a sense tonight. I mean, they pretty much it was that drive right before the half. They were giving Marvin Mims the sideline. He was like, okay, and then they got him over the top, and they just found it after that. So I would love. The way they came out and played that third quarter, to me, it was such a embarrassed by the way the first half went. I would really like to hear what the coach said at halftime and what Brent said, because I imagine it wasn't pretty. I assume there's probably some yelling.
It was spearheaded by Levy. I was told that the halftime adjustment talk on offense, clearly the OC was spearheaded by Levy, and we'll have Sunday on AllSooners roll in about noon, and we'll have what Dylan Gabriel said about the demeanor of the locker room, what Marvin Mims said about the demeanor.
Yeah.
It sounded like it was very, very cool, calm, collected, but I can tell you that Jeff Levy was colorful in delivering that coolness, that calmness, and collecting them back together.
We heard him last week. 3 punts too many, and then you come out tonight and you put up a goose egg for the large. They got that late score, but I mean, it was our reality for a while that Oklahoma was going to get shut out in the first half at home by Kent State. It was crazy. I mean, that's insane. Now they ended up winning easily, but this game was weird for a while, and what was a really weird day for college football. By the way, scoreboard update: they did not show USC Stanford.
Boo!
I was a little disappointed.
I wanted to hear some boos rain down whenever they showed Lincoln Riley up on the scoreboard.
USC did win comfortably. They covered. So
the selection of games they showed was weird. Game 1 was Houston and Tech. Game 2, Kentucky and Florida. Game 3, Tulsa. Game 4, Nebraska. Before Georgia Southern had crossed the 600-yard mark. Then Game 5, Kansas and West Virginia. Look, what a weird collection of games.
They all kind of made sense because it was all Big 12, Nebraska, who they play next week, and then Tulsa. So,
yeah.
I mean, you kind of could see the thinking there.
I guess. OSU was in progress, and the Cowboys were up, but it was it sit between 7 to 10. Feel like it makes sense to plug them in for Tulsa, but anyway. Moral of the story.
Next week, Nebraska. They lost again today, if you haven't seen that. Georgia Southern.
45-42. Missed a field goal at the end.
Missed a field goal at the end. The fans. It's like a sick enjoyment thing of the fans when that field goal misses. It's just like you see the life leave their body. I mean, it's tough. They've just been through so much. First off, is Scott Frost coaching that game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think he's going to make it just because of the buyout?
Well, it's October 1st, you said?
Yeah, October 1st.
That's still another 3 weeks away.
The year's gone.
Can they
already.
take that?
You know what I mean? The year's gone. So if
they
you
got Big Ten play still ahead of them.
They haven't even played Big Ten teams.
If you're
yet.
unaware,
they did play Northwestern and lost.
Yeah, if you're unaware, Scott Frost's buyout is $15 million until October 1st, the day of
7.
So basically, they play Oklahoma next week. Obviously, then they're off. Then on October 1st, they play Indiana, I think. And then on the 1st, it gets cut in half to $7.5 million. To which my running joke/theory, tinfoil hat, is that at 12:01 a.m. on the 1st, the day of the Indiana game, they're going to call Scott Frost that morning and say, "You're canned," and an interim coach is going to take over the day of, because no need to let that guy coach.
Is that game at home? Do you know?
I think it's a home game. Yeah.
Probably the perfect storm is just they literally play October 1st, they lose, and then that's it. That's your final.
I said they should have left him on the tarmac in Ireland.
I mean, that was really.
That's not a stretch.
I mean, there was no saving the season at that point. Their season is lose to Northwestern, squeak it out against North Dakota. Not North Dakota State, North Dakota, and then lose to Georgia Southern.
Clay Helton, baby.
Man, Clay Helton, the fighting Clay Helton.
Clay Helton was wronged.
Do you think that people will just clear out of the Nebraska press box that we can take as our podcast studio in Lincoln?
I say we just podcast in the middle of everybody.
Yeah.
Just everybody
sit down and talk for just roast them for an hour.
There are a lot of people in this state that will do that.
Yes, there are, actually.
Hey,
just no regard for people at all.
On the bright side, we know it's going to be the cleanest press box around, as Brent Venables said. It's the cleanest stadium you'll be in, pretty much.
Cleanest.
a weird memory of Nebraska, but also like the most Brent Venables memory to be like, hey, this place is really clean.
I look forward to it. Large because those fans, as beat down as they are, how do they get up in the morning? They're gonna get there and they're gonna be insane. They're gonna be into it. They're gonna be ready. They're gonna talk themselves into it. Right now they're as low as they could be, but by Wednesday this week, because that's who they are, they're diehards. They'll talk themselves into like maybe we can do it.
One of the few times I've ever stopped at a tailgate on the road was at Nebraska. People were just handing me food, plates of food, and I was stuffed before I ever got to the press box. I hope that experience still exists. It still exists now because that's going to be amazing. Those people are amazing.
Yeah, I bet they get up for it.
They get up 11 a.m.
11
Yeah.
a.m.
Yeah,
Big
we're going to
noon,
be having
baby.
taquitos for breakfast.
Big noon.
Well, you have that exclusive with Urban Meyer that we broke a couple of days ago. When for Big Noon, right? You're doing the Urban Meyer feature. We talked about this.
We did a bunch of Bob Stoops last year, so I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah,
it
that's
only
right.
makes
That's
sense.
right.
Do you guys think that? Okay, so weird Nebraska angle. Ndamukong Suh has become known for kind of being a one-year mercenary, right? The last couple of years in the NFL, and he usually sits out camp and stuff because he just doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Do we think that he's intentionally waiting to sign until like week 2 of the NFL slate so that he can be in Lincoln next weekend? Because all Nebraska,
To play?
no, all Nebraska has is the highlight reel of 2009 where Ndamukong Suh was like, "I'm going to
Yeah.
ravage Landry Jones over and over and over with like 5 turnovers."
It would scare me if I saw Ndamukong Suh on the sideline. He would terrify me. I would avoid. Like I wouldn't want to film him. I would avoid him.
Josh can be in the other end zone.
Yeah, wherever he is, avoid at all costs because that's a scary dude.
I got nothing.
Look forward to it. Obviously, we'll preview that game all week. It's gonna be a weird. What's the spread gonna be for that? I mean, I
It
don't.
needs to be 7. Like Nebraska needs to be perpetually
No more than
7-point
7.
dogs.
Nebraska.
No. Like yes,
Yeah.
In reality, yes, it needs to be more than 7. But the Huskers have lost 10 straight games by 1 score.
Yeah.
Like, of their losses,
The
the
major
last
spin
10.
zone for sure for Scott Frost is that he is like blowout proof. They don't get blown out. They lose at an unbelievable rate, but they do not get blown out. So that's one thing he has going for him. That's up next. Oklahoma, Nebraska. Sooners are 2-0. Wrap up the non-conference slate on the road in Lincoln. We didn't have a non-conference road game last year, so this is the first time that we'll be going on the road for a non-conference game. Who has been there before? But it's been a long time. A lot of people on the beat.
09, yeah.
It's kind of nice
I was
because
there in 09. I was not in the press box. But
it's kind of nice because Ryan and I are younger guys on the beat generally, and obviously the real guys who've been around a real long time. It's they've been in Nebraska like Hoover, but there's a lot of people that have never. We're kind of even footing a little bit.
Yeah, with a few of
talking
those, yeah.
people on the field like, you ever been to Nebraska? No, I've never been there. So it's going to be kind of a new thing for everybody. Looking forward to that next weekend. So that's it. I didn't get my goodbye read. I think I know it by heart at this point. I didn't get it ready.
Let's hear it.
Catch the show, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. I may have left that one. Amazon-able device. Just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. We'll be back on Wednesday.
7.5.
Take Oklahoma.
Per the Action Network, Oklahoma by 7.5 right now.
I think that perpetually needs, as long as Scott Frost is at Nebraska, they need to be 7.5-point dogs. It's like, I dare you to
Yeah.
bet on them to lose by more than the score.
We'll be back Wednesday. That's the next podcast, normal time, as we put the finishing touches on this one if we get a chance to go and watch it back. And then also, of course, look ahead to Nebraska, preview that one, the Sooners and the Huskers next Saturday. Get to see our old buddy Casey Thompson again one more time for the road as the Sooners take on Nebraska. And I presume Scott Frost will be coaching them. And we'll talk all about that one on Wednesday's show. So look forward to that. On the road for the first time next week. Buckle your chin straps. It's going to be fun. So that's it for us. Back on Wednesday. Lots of content from this game on AllSooners.com. Lots more coming on Sunday. I'll see you on Monday, Tuesday, every day on AllSooners.com leading up to Oklahoma's Week 3 matchup next weekend against Nebraska. All right, that's it. Ryan Chapman and John Hoover. It's 2 a.m. We're going to go to bed. Hoover's got like 2-hour drive, so you going to make it?
I'll make it.
He's a machine. Hoover's a machine. There you go.
Caffeinated.
Hit that on cue on Lindsay. That thing's clutch. So that's it for us. We'll catch you guys next week. AllSooners.com, place to be all week long, getting ready for Oklahoma, Nebraska. Next Saturday in Lincoln. Catch you guys next time.